want to share the screen with you and dive into this this idea of re'eh, of seeing. And what does the Degel mean by it? Re'eh onochi nosein lifnechem hayom brocho klola. The Mefarshim talk about what is it about seeing. I mean, it's all about hearing. It should have been im shomoa tishmu tishma onochi nosein lifnechem. But he's saying re'eh. And what am I giving you? I'm giving you a choice, brocha and klola, blessing and curse. Es habrocha shetishmu. Here we have the faculty of audition. Ela mitzvos Hashem asher anochi mitzaveh. So if the brocha, if you listen to my commands, haklola im lo tishmu. Very nice. And so the Degel is going to dive in. I was going to give you a mashal from Medrash, but I don't have time because it's a very dense and deep Degel that really forced me to grapple a lot with it. And so he starts that a person is created by God, la'avodoso, to serve him. Ve'eze avoda tamo. I don't know what that means, tamo. What is an avoda that is tamo? This is what we're going to be steiging on today. Avoda tamo. What does that mean? A person has to serve God, but what is it? He sheyidme ha'adam leyotra b'chol midosov. It's quoting from a Gemara in Soita. Achrei Hashem elakechem telechu, Devarim 13:5. V'chi efshe lo la'adam lahalech achar shchina. How is it possible to emulate the divine? Alo kvar nema ki Hashem elakecha eish ochla. God is a fire. So what do you mean that you can emulate God? Rabbi Chanina says in Soita 14, Elo lahalech achar midosov shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to emulate his characters, his character assets, his midos. Mahu malbish arumim afata, just like he clothes the naked, so should you. Like he's mevakeh cholim, like he visited Abraham on the third day. Afatob bekar cholim. You have to comfort the mourners. So that's what he means. Well, the Degel isn't satisfied with that. That's just the Gemara telling us you have to emulate his behavior, just like he is a righteous anthropomorphic God, so you have to be righteous. Degel isn't happy with that. Eza avoda tamo. What is this avoda that's tamo, tamim, that a person should emulate God in all his midosov, bechol midosov. Remember, I said that word bechol midos. Leman yishkon HaKadosh Baruch Hu etzlo, like God will dwell with you, v'zehu shochein tov, that he should be a good neighbor. A good neighbor means that he knows the warts and all. He knows the good and the bad because he's your neighbor. He hears you screaming and yelling at the wife, and he also hears you loving your wife. He's a neighbor. He's a shochein tov. Already he's hinting that it's the midos, not just the one in Gemara Sota, the nice ones, but bechol midosov. V'zeh sharmu talmidov she Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Ezehu mido tova sheyidbak ha'adam. The Talmidim of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai asked him, what is the correct midah that a person should follow and cleave to the divine? And he said, Chad Omer Shochein Tov. You should be a good neighbor. Peirush HaKadosh Baruch Hu HaNikra Tov, God who's called Tov, Yishkon Eitz Adam V'Yadam Kisei Elov Yisborach. He should be a neighbor to you. You should be a Shechina, should be a Merkava for the Shechina. You should be a Kisei. You should be a throne for God to dwell on you. That's a nice pun on Shochein Tov. Shochein, a neighbor, Shechina. Beautiful. Okay, very nice. And now the Degel asks the question. That's all very nice. Nice wire diagram, good plumbing, be a shochein, go here, be next to him, he'll be with you, emulate his midos. What are you talking about? He's up there, we're down here. How? Give me the wire diagram. How do I do this? Give me the manual of spiritual discipline that will bring me to become a kisei LaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay, first he starts with the typical Hasidic refrain. Yizdakek gufo v'nishmoso. Yes, we all have to do that. We have to refine our body and our neshama. Biskadish adam chushim haruchniim. By sanctifying all our senses, like we spoke last week, the sense of vision, the sense of hearing. By sanctifying, which means Makadesh atzma b'ma mutaloch, you have to restrict your visual input, sensory input, auditory input. You have to sanctify it, censor it. And that's how you become refined in your body and soul. Va'oz miskadshim imitarim kol evora v'gidim. And by doing that, you are now sanctifying and purifying all your evorim v'gidin, your sinews, the ramach evorim v'shasa gidim. Remember, there are 348 and 265 representing the positive commandments and the negative commandments, and each represent the number of sinews in the body and the number of limbs in the body. And the pasuk says, and then your machanecho, meaning the camp of Israelites, will be kadosh. And he says, v'nase nishmasa or. Then you become enlightened. By refining the body, the soul becomes enlightened. V'zeu al yidei Torah u'mitzvahs lishma b'techila u'rechima. And that's through the agency of refining. And how do I do it? Through Torah and mitzvahs. All very nice, very nice. V'kulam al yedei techilu ru'micha, and all through love and fear. Ukahizdake kasharshim ha'ele. Now, if you're able to refine all these anatomical parts, nase gufo merkava l'nishmoso, then your body becomes a chariot for your soul. It becomes so refined, then it becomes no longer a split between the body and the soul, this one tugging this way, this one tugging this way. But having refined the body, it becomes a merkava, a chariot for the neshama. V'nishmato kisei LaKadosh Baruch Hu. So there's a three-step process. The body becomes refined, so it becomes a vessel to hold the soul, and the soul becomes a light, which is a vessel to hold the divine. Umemele kasheyesh lo shochein tov, then nothing happens bad. Very nice. And now he brings in his grandfather, the Baal Shem HaKadosh, in a radical Torah that completely upschlogs this. And I had sleepless nights over this. V'zehu sur me'rava aseitov. What? You just got through saying you have to refine your body through Torah and mitzvahs, Very nice. We still haven't answered the question in the beginning. What does it mean that a person should be medame himself to his yotzro? He should compare himself and emulate bechol midosov, in all God's midos. Now he's going to tell you something very profound. And this is the meaning of sur meirav aseh tov. Now, we learn that in the Pirkei Avos, and we learn it everywhere. It means stay away from evil and stick to the good. That's not what he means. Perush, shetosir min hara kol hara shebo. A person should remove from the ra in it. You don't run away from the ra, he's saying. You've got to go to the ra, schlep him into the base medrash, and take the ra out. Why? V'tase mehora tov. Because in the ra there's tov. Very paradoxical statement. Evil has good in it. Evil has energy in it. Yeah. So what he's saying is, I need that energy, and therefore I need to take the evil out so that I can make use of that energy. Dahainu, mikol hamidos hagashmios v'achomrios. I need midos. Remember, we have to emulate God's kol midos of all his midos. So I also have to do something with my or God's or the reflection of God's midos in me, or midos in me that are bad. What do I have to do with them? I have to yefane mehem hara, all my gashmias and chumrias that I have, everything that's not neshama, I have to take away the ra, the yagbe bohem hatov, and promote the good. Now, he's now going to bring two proof texts for that. The first one is, let me share the screen. The first one is a pasuk from Bereshis, when Jacob has finally met the angel and conquered it, and God blesses him by saying, nope, I'll learn this. Alan, you're going to have to teach me how to do this. Where are we? So he says, Lo Yaakov ye Omer od Shimcha ki im Yisrael. I am no longer going to call you Yaakov, Jacob, but I'm going to call you Yisrael. Very nice. The problem is, and the Gemara tells us in Brochus, Shelo ye oker shem Yaakov mimkom legamre. It's not like I've switched a roux. You're no longer Yaakov, you're now only Yisrael. Like when Abraham became Avraham, or Sarai became Sarah, when God changed their names, we never see their original name again in the Torah. But after chapter 32 of Bereshis, we for sure see sometimes Yaakov is still called Yaakov. Why? If it says your name shall not be called, Lo Yaakov ye Omer od Shimcha ki im Yisrael. It sounds very emphatic. And the Gemara says, but it didn't happen. What happened? Sometimes it was called Yaakov. So the Gemara responds, well, Shem Yaakov Tofel, the Shem Yisrael Iker. So you're right. But the majority of times it was Yisrael, and the name Yaakov was subsidiary to the name Yisrael. It wasn't the main name anymore. That's how the Gemara gets around the textual problem of why we still called Yaakov Yaakov after chapter 32 of Genesis. Now see what the Degel says. The Degel says, Perush, what does it mean that Yaakov was still called Yaakov along with Israel? it turns out that Yaakov, which means Akev, which means the heel, which means the lower animate parts of Jacob, the Gashmias part, the part of Jacob that was a Ramai, he was a deceiver. He still remained, but he was Tophel to his higher self, which was Yisrael, Sar-El, Yisrael, he who struggled with the divine. Right. So the Daigle says, Shalota vatel amidos legamre. He didn't on purpose negate the Surmeira, the Yaakov, the heel, the hick, the heel, he didn't. He wasn't willing to be mavatel the midos. Why? Rak tahafchem el hatov lekabel hatov bahem. He wanted to transform those nasty midos because he wanted the energy of them into the good lekabel hatov bahem, the shiyu keleb el hatov, so that they should be vessels for the good. This is the first proof text that the Daigle says, hey, don't run away so far from the naughty parts. We need the naughty parts. We need that energy of the naughty parts in our service of the God. By emulating Kol Midosov, and we believe in monotheism, we don't split like the Zoroastrians between the God of good and the God of evil, and within us, the good parts and the bad parts. Everything has to be used in the service of the divine. And now his second proof text is what threw me for a loop. And he quotes from and I believe you can see this, from the Mishnah in Avos, Pirkei Avos, the fifth parak, which we say in the summertime on Shabbos Mincha, Kol mi sheyesh b'yado, three dvarim. All who have three of these things, these qualities, mitalmidav shel Avram Avinu. He is of the disciple of Abraham, our father. Now, I color-coded it because I want you to look at the literary structure of the Mishnah, okay? So watch the colors. It's three-dimensional. Ushlosha devarim acherim, and there are three other things, which make him mitalmido shel bilam arosho. Okay, so there are two types, there are two schools. There's the Abrahamic school on the right side of the tracks, and there's the Bilam school of theology on the red light districts. And each of them have mirror image qualities of each other. They are the exact opposite. What is the Talmidim of Avram Avinu? The diagnosis is three things. Number one, Ayin Tova. Number two, Ruach Nemucha, humble spirit, good eye, humble spirit, and Nefesh Fala, and a limited appetite. Very nice. And what is the difference between them and Bilam's school of theology? Bilam's school is based on the three qualities of an evil eye. So there's good eye, evil eye, humble spirit versus haughty spirit, and a moderate appetite versus gasus ruach. Okay? Nefesh rechava, talmidim shel bilov. Ayin ra, ruach gavo, nefesh rechava, meaning just uncontrolled appetite. And now we would have thought the Mishnah should have ended there. But the Mishnah carries on. Well, ma bein talmidov. Ma bein. What is the difference? Ma bein. Talmidit shel Abram and Talmidit shel Bilam. Meaning, what is the end? What is the end of them. So the disciples, mitamidiv shel Avram, ochlin ba'olam hazeh. How do I translate ochlin? They both enjoy this world, ochlin, they consume things in this world, and they inherit the world to come. Whereas the disciples of Bilam, they don't enjoy this world. They just inherit Gehenna and descend into the nethermost pit. Talmidei Shabilam Harasha Yoroshin Gehinnom. And the Degel is going to be interested in this second half of the Mishnah. What does this add? Ma Bain. What is the difference? You've told me the difference. You've told me the difference is whoever has these midos, kol misha yesh beyodo, anyone who has these midos, that is the diagnosis of which school he belongs to. You could have they could have a logo, right? Then the logo said there could be a logo with a good eye, humble spirit, and moderate appetite, and the logo for the Bilam school, evil eye, haughty eye, limited. So what am I adding by telling me this? Well, the pashtus is, of course, I'm adding the reward. The reward from Avram Avinu versus Bilam is one goes to heaven and one goes to hell. Yeah, but there's something we just missed. Watch this. The disciples of Abraham, ochlin ba'olam hazeh. What does it mean, ochlin? It should have just said, well, they inherit the next world. Like they inherit Gehinnom, they inherit olam haba. But here we're saying, ochlin ba'olam hazeh. Here they say, well, not only are they inheriting Gehinnom, but they go into the nethermost pit, Be'er Shachas, where there's no redeeming. There's no getting out of the Be'er Shachas. Do you see the subtle difference? And the Degel picks up on this Ochlim Ba'olam Hazeh. The commentaries, in fact, discuss the exact nature of each of these trades. And they bring scriptural examples of each connecting Abraham versus Bilam. And the basic explanation is Ein Tova, which is the trait of histapkus, meaning satisfied with what you got. And the opposite is an Ein Hora, which is jealousy of others and a desire to possess what others have. Ruach Nemucha, a subdued spirit, is humility. And the opposite is an uplifted spirit, which is arrogance. Nefesh Shvela, a modest personality, refers to the trait of self-control regarding physical desires. And the opposite is a greedy personality that seeks to satisfy every desire. Now, Ma Bain, what is the difference between the Talmidim of Avram and Bilam? There's a very basic issue here. The Mishnah is contrasting two groups of disciples. It's not speaking literally of students of these men, like I suggested. Rather, Bilam isn't Bilam, Avram isn't Avram. Each of us are both of those. And a disciple is one who follows in the path of Abraham or in the path of Bilam. And so Abraham and Bilam represents two opposing schools of thought, each of which has followers. And we are therefore speaking of two different approaches to the same subject matter, right? You have a school, you have a debate in school, you debate thought in art, and a school of thought in chemistry. You don't have the chemist debating with the artist. If there's a conflict between the school of Avram and the school of Bilam, they're both dealing with the same basic issues. And so I think now we must go into what in fact we're arguing about. And now we go into something very, very controversial. Kamoshe Omer Adoni Avis Keni. And I'm going to show you this mashal. And I'd ask you to fasten your seatbelts. for what you are about to experience. Shomati mimoiri. I heard from the Baal Shem HaKadosh my Zaidi. Zchuso yogen aleinu. Ma ben talmidei Bilon harosha le talmidei Avram Avinu. V'hu yadua. And everybody knows the mashal. He doesn't even quote the mashal in the text of the Degel. I had to go searching for this mashal. And I found it in the Tzofnas Paneach, Ben Porat Yosef, of the Toldos, who quoted his father, and Keter Shem Tov in the Maggid of Mezrich. But the Degel assumes you know this story, or it was censored. Now let's read it together. Shamati Mimori. So I had to get this from the Ben Porat Yosef of the Toldos Yaakov, his other main pupil, who really should have been the successor to the Baal Shem HaKadosh, but the Maggid had 200 students, and and the Toldos's personality wasn't that for mentoring students. And this is what he says. Moshel Melech shehoya lo ben. There was a king who had a son, a prince. V'rotza lelamdo kamei mine chochmas shetzrichen lo. Now, in order to become prince, you have to go to prince school. You have to go to Oxford and Cambridge and Gordonston, and then go off to Sandringham and learn how to be a military officer, blah, 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 blah. And he invited a bunch of tutors to teach him. He wasn't in the mood, reminding me of Henry IV before he became the Prince Heir, and he was running around all the pubs of London with Falstaff, right, getting drunk and whoring, right? He was not interested in any chachma. Or the playboys of Europe in Monte Carlo, you'll see all the princes of Europe hanging around doing nothing. Until he had completely given up on his studies. Now, giving up on the studies means he will not be able to handle the kingdom, because you have to learn political science and you have to learn diplomacy, blah, blah, blah. Until all the tutors gave up on him and there was only one tutor left. Okay, very sad at this point. We're at the bottom. Pamachas, one day, Ra ben Amelech, Eze Betula. He's chasing around with the son, trying to protect him, and he notices, because the boy is just not interested in anything, and suddenly one day the son sees a Betula, a beautiful girl, V'chamad Yafia, and he was completely infatuated with her beauty. And for the first time, the Chacham sees a spark of interest in this world. And he rushes to the king and says, King, this little Letz of yours, who's an oisvaf and he's a no good nothing, I just noticed he's just completely besotted with this gorgeous girl. V'heishivo, and the king, in his wisdom, tells him, Im kain, me'acha sheyesh lo chemda, afilu hachi gam bagashmi, even though he has this desire and it's totally physical, you know, it's just Yetzer Hara. He's in love. He's got a Yetzer Hara. Mizeh yovo l'kol hachachmas. I want you to be clever, be tactical, be smart, use strategy to make use of this one nascent desire he has for something in this world. And I'm telling you, from this, you will be able to teach him everything he needs to know. V'tziva, and he commanded him, L'hachnis ha'petula l'chotze ha'melech. Come, my dear, come and enjoy the pools and the beautiful gardens of the king's courtyard. And so he lets her loose in the courtyard, and he lets the young prince loose into the courtyard. V'tziva oleha melech, and he tells her one condition: she'im yitba'ena lo tishma elav ad sheyakabel chochma echad. And if he wants to seduce you, don't listen to him until he has been makabel from his tutor one lesson: Aristotle, Plato, politics, metamorphosis. Each time you have to teach him another chochmah. The Kainoster. And so she's the beautiful girl. She did what exactly the king asked her to do. The Achazeh, and after each time, and he loved her more and more and more, Amra sheyilmadot oid chochma, but she put a carrot in front of the seduction, and every time he had to learn another lesson. Ad she'al yedei zeh kibel kol hachachmas, until he became exactly what he needed to do. He got his bachelor's and his master's, and he went to Sandringham, and he did everything the king required for him to become king. He now had all the credentials. And now the twist. Fasten your seatbelts. Ukeshenase chocham, once he had become this wise sage of a young man, ma'as bibetula, he became disgusted with the girl. Why? Because no longer was it his Yetzer Hara because she was so beautiful. That didn't interest him anymore. He now had to marry a princess from another kingdom, so that the kingdom should continue. It's a stunning mashal. The Hanimshal Muvan, the Toldos doesn't tell us the Nimshal. The Toldos doesn't tell us what the Nimshal is, but clearly the Nimshal is obvious. The Nimshal is obvious. And the Degel is using the Yaakov Yisrael paradigm and the mashal of the prince and the Betula, and says, Ukeshe Osekain, if a person does that with his base midos, with his physical and gashmias and addictions and all that stuff, and he employs that kind of strategy, that tactic, by not running away from the Ra, but going to the Ra and taking the Tov out of the Ra, in our Nimshal, what would it be? He's being he's seducing the girl, but every time the energy to seduce her, before he's studying something until he comes to that deep chokhmah. You could even say that he is getting the wisdom by understanding her tactic, because after 10 or 12 lessons he understands he's got to go to his teacher for a lesson before he can take her out to the nightclub. But he understands that. We have to understand that, the Degel is telling us. Now you become a kisei. Why? Because until now you're half a kisei. You're the good boy. What happened to the other half of you? The shoyresh etzla kadosh baruch hu shehu tov v'chesed v'chaim. And then you become a shoresh. Now, as I was thinking about this, I go back to the Mishnah in Ovos. Ma bein talmidei chachamim tel Abraham letalmidei shel Bilam Arosha. We didn't answer that question. What did I need that second half of the Mishnah for? And the answer has to be that the Talmidim of Abraham are ochlim ba'olam hazeh. They are enjoying this world. It should have said they are being steiging in the base medrash and they're being frum and they're doing everything that they should be doing. And then they will be yoiresh oilam noichalin oilam haba. It doesn't say that. In a dazzling close reading, the Baal Shem HaKadosh and the Degel here is saying they are ochlin ba'olam hazeh. They are participating in this world of Gashmias. And what's the difference between them? The difference between the Talmidim of Bilam and the Talmidim of Avraham is not that the Bilam are bad guys and they're going to hell. That's the pshat in the Mishnah. The difference is that Bilam keeps the split between good and evil. Okay, I'm a bad boy. I'm in the red light district. I'm going to enjoy it and I'm going to hell. Fine. That's my approach to this world. Eat today, for tomorrow will never come. But the Talmidim of Avraham are not the mirror image of that. So I needed the second part of that Mishnah to tell me that the Talmidim of Avraham are ochlim ba'olam hazeh. That you have to be greedy and critical and an unhappy worshiper. Nothing is ever enough, not good enough, not big enough, not enough. And so how do you take the evil out of the evil? By integrating it, not expelling it or ripping it out. You have to have all the qualities of the student of Bilam to get anywhere in the world worth getting to. This is Jungian Torah in its essence. All the evil in you has to be carefully and properly integrated. Don't waste time trying to be rid of it, because doing that will prevent God from dwelling inside you as your shochein tov, your good neighbor. Don't be the nice guy. The only way to have God inside you is to live in such a way that evil runs away from you. And how is that achieved? Going back to that original pasuk. Re'ei onochi nosein lifnechem hayom brocha v'klala. Look at how he's saying, reading it now. He is reading, I want you to see, not listen. I want you to see before you all the stuff in this world that goes into your eyes. Brocha uklala. You have to have both the brocha and the klala in you to integrate properly. Because it's only when you go down to Egypt that God promises, I will go and I will come you up. You've got to go into the Egypt. You have to be capable to have that Yetzirah, to be downright dangerous. You have to be scary. You have to be able to kill and maim and hurt and destroy, or else it's not, going back to what we said, avodah tama. It's not a complete avodah. God himself says, Re'ei anochi nosein lochem hayom brocha. I'm the one who puts the klala in front of you. It doesn't come from Yaldabar or a Zoroastrian evil god. It comes from other Rishus. There's no other Rishuyos. We can only live together if you're like me, God says to me. God says in this Degel. When a person is integrated and is using his good and evil qualities, his bracha and his klala, then he acquires the shochein tov. Kisheyesh lo shochein tov, dahainu haboire baruch hu, az lo yuguru hara. Nothing evil will happen to you. Why? Because the evil inside you remains in service, and that the evil that normally calls to a man from the world outside him runs away from him. I'll say that again. The evil that normally calls to a man from the world outside of him, eat me, rape me, grab me, cheat me, take me, choose me, kill me, hurt me, then runs away from him. Those options to do evil in the world are not calling seductively to the man, because his dark side is already integrated in the service of his higher self. And he cannot be seized by the archetype unawares and led down the path of evil, because the archetype can't seize him. The archetype's been integrated. Because the name Yaakov doesn't go away. It remains at the beck and call of Yisrael to be used when the dangerous, cunning, harmful man is needed. It's a dazzling Torah, and it's such a Baal Shem Tov Torah. It's a different religion than we're used to. I am to employ the evil by integrating it in my soul, because then I have been exposed to it and nothing outside can ever influence me. So the beginning of the Nosin Hayom Brocha Uklala, what is the klala? It is the integration of the dark side of the self. That's where God, the good neighbor, sits with you. Ubechina klala kashetered mid madregosacha shehu bechinas klala. When a person goes down in his madrega, as Rab Nachman says, the yeridas l'tzorach aliyah, all the times we go down in our lives, all the chisronos that we have, all the shmutz we have to go through, everything we have to deal with, that is the bechina of the klala. That is the dark side of the self, and it is God-given in order to go down and come up bigger, better, stronger, and richer. And that, my friends, I think, is the key to Elul. Ani ledodi, v'dodi li. Ani ledodi, that's the from side of me. I want to be to my beloved. But v'dodi li, he's making more demands on me than just be a nice, good from boy. He wants to be a shochein tov. He wants to be my neighbor so that I can be a kisei to all of him. The dark spheros and the light spheros, I have to be that Merkava. We should all be zoiche to be able to integrate our addictions and our dark sides and all the schmutz and all for the sake of being able to withstand them in the real world. Have a wonderful week, a chodesh tov, a good chodesh. Have a wonderful, wonderful month.